The month of April was an excellent reading month. I was able to read 12 books, and they include some ARCs, some library books, and some books off of my physical TBR. So let's talk about it. First, I want to start with the 5 books that I put on my April TBR. So we have And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison, book 2 in the Heartstrings series. This follows Jackson and Delilah as they head out to Western Maryland to cover a snowstorm. Delilah being the meteorologist from the local TV station, Jackson being the sweet friend that works at the radio station that we met in book 1, First Time Caller. I really like this book. This is just slightly off of When Harry Met Sally. Really cute. Delilah is one of those super energetic, super sweet, sugary, covered in sprinkles kind of people. But she's got much more going on beneath the surface that she will not let anybody see and not let that dim her light. But she is able to share some of that stuff when she and Jackson get stuck in a snowstorm in a 1-bedroom trope. And yeah, it's really cute. Highly recommend this. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. The other book, again, this is an ARC that comes out on May 15th. So I rated it 5 stars, so please pick up this book. I absolutely love this book. 5 stars, dystopian, near future, 2070, I believe is when it is sent. Found family elements. There's 4 main characters in this story. The chapters are told in alternating perspectives. Really good. It's 4 people, incredibly different backgrounds, no reason to trust each other. None of the 4 people are sure if they can trust or should they trust each other. So again, highly recommend. Please pre-order this book. The Things We Bear, Rachel Moore, May 15th. So the 3rd book I read off my TBR was Blowfish by Kyung-ran Jo. This is translated from Korean. This book was good, but it was very dark. The book is about 2 characters who are contemplating ending their lives, and literally that's all that's discussed in this book. But there were some beautiful lines. I just want to read some of these without going, there's no spoilers. I just want to read some of these lines. It says, "People didn't kill themselves for no reason. An emotion existed beneath every death, whether it was hate or rage or sorrow or resentment or shame or love. Embarrassment, this was hers, and sometimes this emotion made her feel a stabbing pain. But everyone died with their own particular pain." Again, just some really excellent lines from this book. Another line that I really liked was, "I realized that death wasn't the thing dragging me down, but the desire to live. They say that sometimes life is something you have to work at with your whole being." And it's, like I said, everyone will take different things away from this book. Everybody's reading experience will be different. But yeah, it really good. And I just want to read the author's note at the end. And it kind of gives you an idea of why she wrote this book. It says, "Sadness and beauty and fear and death. I write about what overwhelms me, about what possesses me, about what doesn't let me go. I began writing this book last fall and only finished it in the spring. It has never taken me this long to write a novel. I wasn't reluctant or hesitant or seeking something else. I would think about the act of writing, the meaning of it, the blank screen of my laptop, my small room, and me gripping the edges of my desk. We spent a long time propping each other up. I don't want to be closer or kinder to someone else, to anything else. I don't want to be more upbeat or happier, because now that writing has become a calling for me, I don't think I should wish for anything more than that. What I want is a simple life, one in which I can think and read and write, While I write this book, I realize what a lofty dream that is. I realize how impossible it is to achieve that dream, how much solitude it requires. There is no need for a long explanation. I want to see how much more I can think, how much more I can read, and how much more I can struggle to write. I've been waiting to write this novel from the moment I put pen to paper. I didn't want to tell this story too soon. This story is one I knew I could write just once. So again, this is Blowfish. This is translated fiction, translated from Korean. And it is Kyung-ran Jo is the author. I can strongly recommend this book if you are in the right headspace. So please be mindful of that. The next book was Credenza by Wendy Dalrymple. This is a short pink horror book. Ended up being way more gory and gross and lots of body horror, and this book was awesome. I rated this a 4.5 stars. I love this book. I read it in one day. Again, it's 200 pages, give or take. So it's short, but it grips you. The main character, she receives a credenza when her grandmother passes and needs money. She's a single parent, can't really count on anybody. And so she starts receiving these offers to sell this credenza, and she's stuck because it's that she wants to sell it. She needs to sell it. They're asking a crazy amount of money for it, but weird things start happening. And then more sinister, weird things start happening related to this credenza, and people are dying, and it is just, I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to spoil anything, but Wendy Dalrymple, love this author. She has become one of my new favorite authors. Aldo By, her newest book, Bedrot Baby, came out a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two. That was excellent, but yeah, this was one of her backlist books, Credenza. Highly recommend it, 4.5 stars. The last book that was on my 5-book TBR for April was Taming Seven. This is Gibbs's story and about him and Claire Bear and their love story. But just like every other Boys of Tommen series, Chloe Walsh is going to rip your heart out, stomp on it, and have no regrets about writing it. If you've ever seen any interviews with the author, it will give you pause and perspective on why she wrote this book and why it covers such serious topics. And I feel that she writes all of her books so well. I mean, this is one of the shortest books, and this was, it's nearly 450 pages, and this is one of the shorter books. It is, she just writes with such care and such sensitivity, covers horrible topics no one should have to deal with, more or less these high school age characters, let's put it that way. But Gibbs's story about him and Claire Bear and them falling in love, and his friendship with Johnny, and it's such a good book. We can't help but love Gibbsy. And so when you find out his story, because we know there's going to be something dark and underlying in his story, and I listened to part of this in audiobook and I read part of it, and there are probably tear marks on the pages when I was reading it. I was doing dishes when I was listening to part of it, and I had to turn the water off and put the plate down that I was washing because I was devastated by what they discuss in this book, and I was completely heartbroken. 5 stars. I really recommend, if you haven't started the series, please do, but be careful, be mindful of the content within the pages, because again, the author covers these topics with such sensitivity and care, but it is very heavy topics in these books. But this has been my favorite of the series. This is book 5, Taming Seven, Chloe Walsh. All right, so let's move on to some of the other books that I read in the month of April. How the Story Goes by Andrew Forrester. This was so sweet. This is a romance, a fiction, a bookish book about bookish, broken people, and just really, really sweet. So I had the digital ARC as well as the advanced listener copy and the audiobook. I didn't like the audiobook, I'm sorry. I love dual narration and I loved the male narrator, but for whatever reason, the female narrator, her voice was just grating to me. I hated her chapters and I would literally turn the audiobook off, read those chapters, and then go back to listening to the male narrator because he was excellent. So not sure I can recommend the audiobook, but that's a personal thing. You may listen to it and be like, Melody, why are you being so harsh on this female narrator? I loved her voice, but again, just like reading, it's subjective. So it was well produced, really well done, but for some reason, the female narrator just irked my ears and my nerves. So I rated this book 4.5 stars. Let me read the synopsis to you because I want to make sure I don't miss anything and don't tell you too much. So it says, a young widower of a famous children's fantasy author teams up with a down-on-her-luck MFA dropout to write the final book in his late wife's series, and they find their own perfect ending along the way. Whit has a monumental task and a looming deadline. After his wife Helen died of cancer, she left him with their grieving 8-year-old daughter and a surprise in her small task of writing the final book in her mega popular children's series for the legions of waiting fans. Whit is the author of a moderately successful but well-received literary mystery series. He doesn't have the first idea how to complete Helen, that was his wife, how to complete her beloved series. And his wife seems to have left no clues behind on how the story is supposed to end. Writer's block is one thing, but failing in fulfilling his wife's last wish, Whit is guilt-ridden and dodging calls in the school pickup line from Helen's publisher and agent as the deadline fast approaches. Then Whit meets Merritt. She works at the local bookstore in their small New England town. Merritt has moved back home after a disastrous affair led her to dropping out of her prestigious MFA program. When Whit realizes Merritt is a super fan of his late wife's series, they come up with a plan to tackle the book together. For the first time in years, Merritt finds herself falling back in love with writing, and perhaps with the co-author offering her the opportunity of a lifetime. But when Whit uncovers buried secrets about Helen's final wishes, he questions everything about what he and Merritt have created together, endangering the tender, electrifying partnership that has transformed their lives. Can Whit and Merritt come up with an ending that feels right for both the beloved series and for their battered hearts? 4.5 stars. This comes out May 5th. The book I read that actually has released at this point is The Consequences of Normal. This book was absolute perfection. I received an ALC through NetGalley, and like I said, I then, as soon as I finished, before I even posted my 5-star review on NetGalley, I called my local library and requested/demanded nicely that they order a copy to put on their shelves. I also pre-ordered a copy to support the author and called my mom and raved about it. It was so good. So the author has a transgender child. So this book is about a parent and her experience with her transgender child. They start living in a town in Texas, relocate to a different part of the country, hoping that in the different part of the country things will be better. Come to find out there's issues with lack of support from the father, to the school. It goes through all of the trials and heartache that is experienced by not only the transgender child, but by that child's loving, supportive mom, and some of the struggles that she deals with as a parent, not knowing how to support their child, knowing how to love their child, but not knowing how to support them in the best way. And again, due to the author's personal experience with this, you can tell that this is written with sensitivity and care and directly from the author's heart. So I highly, highly recommend you read this book, whether you have a transgender person in your life, whether you want to know how to better support an individual that may or may not be in your life, but just how to open your heart and your mind to people that are different. So again, I highly recommend this book. It came out on April 30th or April 28th. Either way, by the time I post this book, it is available where all books are sold. Again, I listened to the ALC and it was done beautifully, 5 stars. Perfect book, perfect audiobook. I will never stop raving about this book. So again, it is Consequences of Normal. Like I said, the cover is absolutely beautiful. So I'm hoping that when people go into stores and libraries, they will immediately be attracted to the cover. And then they will pick up this book and read it, because I find it incredibly important and I think they will really like it. The Cove, and I'm reading from Goodreads. I don't want to mess up the synopsis. And this is by Claire Rose, and this is a YA, but it's definitely a older YA. Science fiction, horror, thriller, mystery. It is a genre-bending story. Midsummer, do you guys remember that movie? That creepy movie? Yeah. So picture that, and if you are like myself and grew up reading Fear Street, yeah, those two series, or movie and book series, had a baby, that's what this would be. So it says, this is a sea-soaked folk horror debut about fighting to survive and fighting to be yourself. 17-year-old Lindsay Weinberg has just been kicked out of yet another prep school and exiled to her uncle's farm in the cold, isolated town of Mayberry, Maine. But Uncle Levi is gone, leaving the farmhouse under the strict rule of his new, zealously evangelical wife, who runs a reform camp for troubled teens. Up at dawn, manual labor all day, no phones, no computers, no way out, when Lindsay meets twins, Finn and Cass. Yeah, think of the twins from The Shining. That's what I envisioned when I read this. And I'm not going to read anything else. Trust me on this. I give it 4.5 stars. It's creepy, it's scary, it's funny. Pick this up, The Cove, Claire Rose. It's a debut. I can't wait to see what she comes out with in the future. The next book that I read, I was able to get from my local library, and that was The Extra by Annie Neubauer. This is book 1 in the Outsider series. The second book is called The Other, and that comes out on June 9th. I do have a digital arc of that through NetGalley, so that's why I want to make sure I read and enjoyed The Extra before diving into that book. So again, The Other, I will cover that next month, but The Extra is what I read this month, and this has now been published traditionally through Shortwave Media. 10 people head out on a backpacking trip, but the first night, 11 set up camp. Everyone remembers everyone else. Who's The Extra? The Extra is a debut dark sci-fi novella by Annie Neubauer, and again, it had so much potential, and as I've heard other people rave about this book, that I just had too high of expectations. Nothing wrong. That's why I rated it 3 stars. It was just meh. It was average. It just didn't do anything for me. The Other, that comes out in June, is kind of an interconnected standalone. You can read that one or The Extra. There's no particular reading order. I recommend publishing order. That's just how I read series. The next book that I read from my library was That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. Came out 3 years ago. I think most everyone has heard about this book, if not read it themselves, but in case you haven't, it says, she thought she had her life back. She was wrong. It was a mistake to trust him. Shivering and bruised, a teen wakes up on the side of a dirt road with no memory of how she got there or who she is. A passing officer takes her to the police station, and not long after, a frantic man arrives. He's been searching for her for hours. He has her school ID, her birth certificate, even family photos. He is her father. Her name is Mary, or so he says. And I'm not going to read any further into the synopsis. I'm going to leave it at that. It is YA. It does read extremely fast. Really, really loved it. Highly recommend. The third short horror novella that I read in the month of April was Courier by Zoe Rossi. If you were a fan of You, the TV show or the book series, obviously the book is always better, but anyway, if you liked You and that creepy psychological, yes, you will love this. There is a guy and he is the courier. So if you're not familiar with that term, he is the delivery man. So most likely invisible to especially the more elite in society, but he's the creepy one. He's the one that becomes obsessed. I'm not gonna just pick it up. Just pick up this book. Pick up this audiobook. The audiobook was beautifully narrated. I absolutely loved it. It's told from the courier. So you are in his head. You are living and seeing life through his eyes, and it is creepy. Please, please, please pick this up. It is very short. Again, it's a novella. You will tear through it because once you start, I literally listened to the whole thing in one sitting. I could not, life stopped so I could see how this was going to end. So good. 5 stars, 5 times over. Absolutely loved it. Courier, Zoe Rossi, please pick it up. So another book off my physical TBR was Love in Other Words, Christina Lauren. Sorry, the dogs are barking. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I picked this up at TJ Maxx or Home Goods or somewhere for like $5. I'd heard everyone love and rave about this book, and I didn't like it. I mean, it wasn't bad by any means, but I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. It just, I don't know. I don't know if I didn't connect to the characters. I don't know if it's that I didn't like the ugliness between the characters and the close to cheating, emotional. I don't know. Whatever it is, I did not care for this book. This was one of my least favorite books of the month. And again, it wasn't bad, but I'm also not a fan of 450-page romance books. If you want me to read 450 pages of a romance book, you've got to hook me, and I just wasn't hooked with this book. So, Love in Other Words, Christina Lauren, not my favorite, 3.5 stars.